So there's been a lot of bad trades throughout sports history, but none may measure up to the absolute disaster that has been the Deshaun Watson trade for the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, it's fitting. Throughout the entire time I've been watching sports, like 20 years at this point, the Cleveland Browns have basically sucked that entire time, and somehow I think they're in their worst position I've ever seen them.
Before we start talking about Deshaun Watson, if you haven't already, make sure to leave this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. What a time for football in the state of Ohio. I mean, a couple weekends ago, Oregon and Ohio State play one of the games of the year so far in college football. You know, just an epic night at Autzen Stadium, a game that I went to with my dad. It was so much fucking fun. And then the very next day, the Browns lose to the Eagles in a game of basically which team could piss off their fan base more, with the Browns just sucking ass, Sirianni arguing with the crowd, and the Browns are now 1-6 in year 3 of the Deshaun Watson era, and the future of the quote-unquote era got a whole lot more complicated this past weekend, but we'll get to that. And I mean, just what an era it's been, right?
I mean, they've just never been able to find a quarterback. Remember that one jersey where it had like 27 names on it? They drafted Brandon Weed in that one year in the first round. And to be honest, they finally had the guy in Baker. I was not a Baker guy going into the draft. I was with Colin Cowherd. I was like, Sam Darnold's the guy. But Baker was it. He led them to their first playoff win since 1994 when he won in 2020. They came within 5 points of beating the Chiefs to advance the AFC title game. And then you just give up on him after one, I mean, not even that bad of a season. 8-9 really isn't that bad. And look what Baker has done since.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a second, but they decided, nope, we're going to trade for Deshaun Watson. And like at this point, Deshaun was still considered one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, but he hadn't played football in a year. He sat out the entire 2020 season after requesting a trade, and he was facing 22 accusations, and most of the rumors at the time were pointing Watson towards either the Saints or the Falcons because Watson had a no trade clause, so he could basically just pick his next destination. And then Cleveland swooped out of nowhere and landed him, and they did so because they gave him a $230 million fully guaranteed contract, completely shattered the benchmark at the time for NFL quarterbacks. In fact, it beat the previous record for guaranteed money by $80 million and was only just recently surpassed by Dak Prescott's new deal, which is already looking great for the Cowboys considering how they're playing. But not only did the Browns agree to pay Watson this obscene amount of money, but they also sent out 3 first-round picks, a 3rd rounder, and a 4th rounder. And 2 years later, experiment has not worked whatsoever.
Here's the thing. The trade on paper already sucks with the contract. It's horrific. And then you're paying this to a dude who has 22 accusers against him. This is just disgusting, and I'm glad the Browns are suffering because of that. Briefly recapping the past 2 years here, just to tell you guys how awful it's been going. In 2022, he's suspended for 11 games, fined $5 million. No player even comes close to that. That is an insane fine, deserved though. And then when he comes back, he completes 58% of his passes and leads the Browns to a 3-3 record. So even when he came back, I know you're coming back like mid-season and everything, dude was not playing good.
No, and then the next year, I mean, he went 5-1, but again, only completed 61% of his passes, had I think 7 touchdowns to 5 picks, had season-ending shoulder surgery after week 10. The Browns did go on to make the playoffs thanks to Joe Flacco just coming out of nowhere, although they did get beat down by the Texans in the playoffs, which is just all kinds of ironic. And then this season, it's just been the ultimate train wreck. They're 1-6. They have an inept offense. They have an average at best defense. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league. Watson was constantly just getting pummeled in the pocket, sacked nonstop. And to cap it all off, they are burdened with what may be the worst contract in all of pro sports. I mean, maybe Bradley Beal's contract is worse, but considering how important the position of quarterback is in football and just the financial ramifications for the Browns if they decide to cut Watson, I think his contract is worse.
I think it's worse, and I don't even think these are comparable, really, to be honest, because Bradley Beal, when he plays, the Suns actually win. I think their record was 33-20 with him. You'd like to see him play more, not get injured.
It's better than 1-6.
Yeah, and off the court, it seems like Bradley Beal is a fine guy. He's not just an absolute piece of shit.
Yeah, like the Browns fucking deserve this. Whether you think Watson is guilty or not, giving the guy who was in the midst of an unprecedented scandal in terms of how many accusers there were, the most guaranteed money in NFL history, and not only that, but manipulating the contract so he was only paid $1 million in his first year, so he'd lose the least amount possible when he inevitably got suspended. Like, it reeks of a franchise that was desperate to win at all costs, no matter what the optics were. And like with the lack of flexibility because of this contract, the Browns are basically stuck until 2026. And not only that, they have become like public enemy #1 for bringing in Watson and then just continuing to back him.
I mean, they've been a great hate watch.
Yeah,
like,
they have.
Every single time you can look at the NFL schedule in a given week and be like, you know what? Who are the Browns playing against so I can root for them? The question is moving forward though, like, why keep starting him? Like, I get it. Jimmy Haslam, his ego's too big. They want to like, oh no, you know, it's still going to work out somehow.
It's still good. It's still good.
Yeah, but clearly the team has no belief in the dude. He's not even resembles like anywhere near the dude he was in Houston. Like, this is an all-time drop-off that maybe we've never seen before.
Ben Simmons-esque.
Yeah, I think it might even be worse. It is crazy.
Like, the only hope for the Browns at this point is that they could void Watson's contract, which I think they could do if he got suspended. And there were some that were probably hoping for that when he got another accusation this past year to get suspended for it, but he settled it. He didn't get suspended for it. So, you know, they're stuck with him. And with the Browns having sucked ass for the past 2 years, it's almost like comical how well everyone else in this situation has made it out of it. Like, Baker bounced around for a couple years. He went to Carolina, and considering they still fucking suck even after he left, I'm gonna say it's not his fault it didn't work in Carolina. You know, he had a cup of coffee in LA where he led that 98-yard drive against the Raiders, got kidnapped by the Nickelodeon claw on Christmas. So he signs with Tampa Bay this past year, leads into the playoffs, and then gets a nice contract extension this offseason, and now he's leading the league in touchdown passes. And then the Texans, I mean, basically just got a free rebuild from this trade. I mean, from the picks they received from the Browns, they either used themselves or flipped into other draft capital from other teams. They have taken Will Anderson, Tank Dell, Kenyon Green, Cal Bullock, Kamari Lister, John Mechie, Christian Harris, Damian Pierce, Jamal Hill, and Cade Stover. And they still have a 2025 second round pick coming in.
What's crazy is, like, I thought the Seahawks made out like bandits on the Russ trade. I was loving that trade. I was like, they need more hype for this. And then this blows it out of the water, and the Texans are one of the best teams in the league, could legit win the Super Bowl this year. And then how about Joe Flacco? Like, this dude is literally the Unk still got it meme. 2-1. I know Anthony Richardson's playing now, but 2-1 there. Led a great season to end the year for the Browns.
And to make things even worse for the Browns, or maybe better, honestly, depending how you look at the situation, Watson tore his Achilles this past Sunday in Cleveland's 21-14 loss to Cincinnati. He was carted off the field to a chorus of cheers from the Browns crowd. Now, plenty of people took issue with this because it's fans, you know, cheering an injury. Others didn't really have a problem with it because they don't like Watson. And one of the biggest criticisms I've seen of Browns fans celebrating is that, oh, they wouldn't be cheering if he was playing well, which is definitely true for a sizable portion of the fan base, but also there's a big segment of Browns fans that have been against the organization having this guy from the very beginning. I get why people didn't like it. At the same time, like, I'm not crying any tears for the guy. Like, let's not make him into a victim when there are actual victims out there.
I mean, I was all for the cheering. I have no problem with that. Surprisingly, LeBron put out that tweet. A rare miss for LeBron, in my opinion.
You gotta get the Men in Black flashy thingies out for everyone seeing that tweet.
Let's act like that didn't happen. And like, even if they are done with Watson, like we're saying, moving forward, the QB situation, you're gonna have a good pick this year, but is this the year like you even want to draft a quarterback? It might be worth just taking a tackle or something, because the only two quarterbacks that really look like they could be franchise guys are Shedeur and Cam Ward. And even then, like, I'm not in love with either prospect. Quinn Ewers out here getting benched. Carson Beck throwing a duck on damn near every play.
Leading the SEC in interceptions.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe. I don't have a lot of confidence in him either, so I don't know. I don't think they have a QB solution next year. I might just draft a tackle and then ride with Jameis, because now you have Deshaun Watson, who is already a bum, coming off an Achilles injury, the worst injury in sports.
And could you imagine, like, say they do take Shedeur or Cam Ward, could you imagine starting a rookie when you're paying this dude
That's crazy.
$50 million? Again, I'm not sure the Browns' ego could let them do that.
So is this the worst trade ever? In some ways, no. In some ways, yes. Like, you could obviously say, like, oh, Babe Ruth getting sold to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Like,
so their owner could finance a stage play. Divac for Kobe.
Yeah, there's other trades like that where an all-time star gets traded for nothing. But given the context the Browns knew about out, the contract, how awful it's worked out, at least in the modern era, past 10 years, you throw in the Nets trade that got them Tatum, that's up there as well, but this is pretty damn bad.
I mean, at least with the Nets trade, that trade didn't sink their reputation among all the neutrals. Like, the stink of this trade is going to be on the Browns for like 4 and 5 years, even after Watson is eventually gone. Like, it may not follow them around like, you know, the Astros scandal has followed the Astros around, but people are not going to have positive opinions on the Cleveland Browns for a while. That's the video, guys. What do you think of Deshaun Watson's contract? Do you think it's the worst in the history of sports? Love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.